Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar, Sip in Place, Wines of Portugal. We're really excited to bring this to you live today, and thanks for joining us. Before we do get started, I do have a couple of housekeeping things that I want to cover with you, which will make for a more enjoyable webinar experience. Number one, we'd greatly appreciate if you would answer the poll questions that we have launched here. We will end that poll here as soon as I make my introduction, and our host will reveal the answers as well. We are taking questions during this webinar. We're using the Q&A function. Most of you should be familiar with that by now if you've taken part in Zoom webinars before. So go ahead and put your questions in the Q&A box, and we will get to them at the end of the presentation. We have some time set aside for questions and answers as well. By now, you should have received your wines as well, so hopefully you have those at the ready, because we will be making this an interactive tasting session during the webinar, so we want you to be prepared and have those wines at hand and open, ready to go. I do draw your attention here to a couple of the social media tags that we have. We hope that you will share your experience, share your knowledge about Portuguese wines on social media, and we ask that you use the hashtags that we've provided here on screen. We'd be really grateful. And I will be putting in a couple of links in the chat box. These are files that you can download with further information on the wines of Portugal. We did make those available in your reminder emails as well, but in case you did not have an opportunity to download those, I'm going to make those available here in a moment. Okay. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to introduce our host today, Eugenio Jardim, who is a native of Brazil, but moved to San Francisco in 1988. And he was the wine director for the very famous Jardinaire restaurant, from 2001 to 2013, where his team also won a 4-star award for service from the San Francisco Chronicle. He was named Sommelier of the Year in 2010 by Sunset Magazine, and he is often featured as a guest sommelier and lecturer at international and national wine seminars and competitions. And in 2015, he was selected to become the first Wines of Portugal U.S. ambassador, where he heads up wine education and marketing initiatives here in the U.S. He is also the director of education for the San Francisco Cooking School and an adjunct professor at the Culinary Institute, CIA, at Napa Valley Greystone. So without further ado, Eugenio, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So happy to be here with all of you, and thank you for taking the time to enjoy the Wines of Portugal seminar with us. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna obviously try to, through this time of isolation, we have to always try to pivot into this type of communication, but hopefully this will give you a sense of connectivity with the wines that we love. I'm gonna do a brief presentation on Portugal, which I hope that most of you are already fully aware about the wines of Portugal and its place in the world. But I wanted to make sure that I give you an opportunity to just review some facts with me that are actually quite interesting about Portugal. What I would like to do at this point is to just go over. Christian, can you confirm that my share screen is in place?
Success indeed.
Excellent. Sorry about that, everybody. I will discount that from my time and let you guys hear from the winemakers, which are much more interesting people than I am. I love to start the seminars always often showing these pictures of Portugal, because I have this very tired joke that I start by saying, Portugal is a very ugly country. It seems like a good opening line when you see pictures of the wine countries and the beautiful old cities of Portugal. It's a country where you experience the greatest hospitality, fantastic wines, and you can always stay in my summer home. Is a picture right here. I am descendant of the king and queens of Portugal, so you all welcome to stay at my palace. Kidding. But serious now, Portugal is a very small producing nation. If you look at this map, it shows you exactly where Portugal is located and its proximity, and if you may, distance from the rest of Europe, or from Northern Europe, or even the middle of the continent. Portugal is actually closer to Africa and in the northern coast of Morocco, which I find it very interesting because that plays a big part on the climate of Portugal as well. Portugal is a small country, as I said, 350 miles long, 135 miles wide. For the American standards, this is quite astounding because you can actually fit Portugal. I'm in San Francisco, but Portugal can fit inside California 4 times, and there's still a little room to spare. But within that, there's such a great history of winemaking that dates back 2000 BC. There's traces of viticulture that dates back to the Bronze Age, which I find it fascinating that such as a long and old culture remained so private and still new to us in America. Portugal enjoys a vast number of microclimates because of the terrain in Portugal and the climatic influences that we'll go over in a little bit. But also what's fascinating about Portugal is that in this small area, as I said, a quarter the size of California, there are 250 plus native grape varieties. And when we say native grape varieties, we always have the tendency of thinking that whatever the region is known for, that means that must be native. Well, there's a very big difference between being endemic to a place and native of a place. Portugal, the Portuguese grape varieties, 250 plus, have developed in complete isolation. Their DNA does not match the DNA from the Middle Eastern grapes or the grapes that came from Georgia or the Caucasus Mountains. So it makes it's a blessing and a curse, because at the same time that makes you really excited to disclose that, like, this is completely new. No one has ever seen this before. It makes it very hard because we always like to do things with association. Oh, this is like a Pinot. This is like a Cab. Well, Portugal is all new. So you should all be very excited to learn about it. Now, the Portuguese Revolution really began when Portugal joined the European Union in 1986. The whole DO system was rewritten, and there was huge improvements brought into the wine sector. To us, a lot of us think about great improvements as in, oh, they bought a new press, or, oh, they were able to put temperature control tanks. Well, in reality, some wineries had electricity for the first time and had computerized systems for the first time. So this revolution is not to be taken lightly, because the Portuguese wines blossomed since joining the European Union. And we have a few examples of my next topic joining us today, which is the fact that the wine sector became a very interesting possibility for many people, in a very attractive business. A younger generation who tended to, like, not wanting to be in the country working vineyards or making wine, moved to the cities, but now the wine sector has exerted this charm over everyone. And just about 60% of the new graduates of enology school are females. And as you all know, females bring a very fresh perspective to a wine business that was very male dominated up to now. To very recent years. I was talking to someone the other day, and he was looking at our screen and seeing all these wonderful winemakers, and he said, 20 years ago, there will all be old men with mustaches. And now there's all these beautiful, talented women. So we're all very happy that the wine business has really rejuvenated. But this is not to say that Portugal has abandoned its traditions. It is a country with very rich traditions. They are very respected and preserved. And we're gonna taste wines today that come from some of these national treasures that I call, the Vinhas Velhas, the old vines, the old vineyards of Portugal. which is a phenomenon and a sanctuary for the way things were a few centuries ago. This beloved country has also really preserved and worked really hard and preserve its viticultural identity. And by doing so, Portugal really worked hard in preserving the native varieties in their natural environment. Therefore, Portugal is, as you can see on this map, kicking butt as one of the country with the most indigenous varieties per 1,000 square kilometers in Europe. By far, there's no one that comes even close to this, what's happening in Portugal, which I think is fantastic. But also, you don't make great wine if you don't have great terroir. Portuguese, this map is one of my favorite things that my company was able to put together, because it shows you all the great possibilities and why wines of Portugal have such individual personalities. You have a wine from the Vinho Verde region that doesn't taste like the white wines from Lisbon, that do not taste like the white wines from the Down, so forth and so on, because there is so much peculiarity, and it's on single sites. You can see coming from the north, this incredible band of granite soils that, boy, the elegance of the wines made on those soil types it's incredible. And then you can see that little dark green dot on the far right corner, which is the Douro region, which we all know, super known for the schist, the very old soils. And then as you go down the coast and follow the Tejo River or the Tagus River, you see an incredible band of sandy soils running through the Tejo and also the Lisbon region. And when you get to the Alentejo, all bets are off. They have everything. As you can see, is a patchwork of soil types, which is kind of fantastic and really explains all the different type of wines that can be produced in that region. Another very important thing about why Portugal makes wines the way Portugal does is because Portugal basically has two neighbors. In one side is a very cold, moist, windy, and salty ocean. The Atlantic does not get, like, for example, in the East Coast of the United States, that gets quite warm in the summertime. This is a very cool ocean that brings in these fresh breezes, this cold air, sometimes fog in some areas, which really gives the acidity, the brightness, the lightness of feet of the wines made on the coastal areas. Now, on the other side, we have the neighbors. We jokingly refers them to the neighbors because there is this great joke in Portugal that I love and I always repeat it, and the Spaniards hate it. And they say that only two things come from Portugal, from Spain, bad winds and bad marriages, because the king of Spain married the queen of Portugal and invaded Portugal for a few years, and the Portuguese still remember that with a little resentment. But according to going back to the bad winds, it's all about the continental influence. If you've been to Spain, you know that the interior of the Iberian Peninsula can get quite hot, and is also extremely dry. So that weather really dictates all the wines made on the interior of the country, almost up to the wines to the center of the country. So if you are not close to the Atlantic, you're definitely baited in continental climate, which is hot, dry, and sometimes kind of stormy. There is a smaller third influence, which is the Mediterranean climate, this is the mouth of the Mediterranean, and the region of the Algarve and the Alentejo also benefit from a little bit of more balmy temperatures. And this is not as marked of an influence as the continental influence on the north and east, and the Atlantic influence on the west. So it really dictates, and you can see by the colors and the vibrancy of colors of these vineyards in the region of Vinho Verde, Bairrada, Lisboa, Peninsula de Setúbal, the Açores or the Azores Islands, and Madeira. These are really Atlantic, and maritime climate regions. And then if you move inland, you can see how dramatic the difference is. This gets pretty dry and pretty hot. And if you have a haircut like mine, not a good place to be there in the summertime. It gets pretty toasty. And we're talking about Trás-os-Montes, Porto and Douro, Távora Varosa. And then in the interior, it gets a little milder because of the altitude of the down, the Beira Interior. And then the Tejo and the Alentejo, which are quite fascinating by the diversity of the wines that can be produced in these regions. And then on the south, there is the Algarve, which is a very up and coming region, known for this. Wow. Yeah, it's hard to get to work in Algarve, let's be honest. And every Portuguese here in this call, you can ask them, were you in the Algarve this summer? They're gonna go, yeah, because it is spectacular. But the ocean continues to be a little cold here, but the interior, as you can know by the cliffs, gets a little dry, a little more arid, and it balances really well this duality, climatically speaking. As Christian said, I was a sommelier for most of my life. So I don't speak of wines in terms of like, this is what I read in the book. I speak of wine from a point of view of what I've done, what I've experienced, what I learned. And to me, Portugal represented sincerely a breath of fresh air. How exciting it is for sommeliers and for retailers to, when their customers walk in and say, so what's new? And you can say, well, as a matter of fact, I got a lot of new things that you've never heard of. So this was exciting to me as a sommelier. I really enjoyed and reveled on the possibilities that Portugal brought about. And also what made me even happier is because I am not a fan of over-extracted, juicy, rich, sweeter fruit, jammy wines. I think they may be very good to go with conversations by a fireplace, but they don't really resonate, for example, on the table, on the dining room. And the Portuguese wines always have a savory quality to them that makes them excellent food wines. Now, you make your customer twice as happy when they see the price point. When they receive the bill and see that they paid half of what they expected for a really superior wine from some other destinations that are more classically known, I think you're going to please a lot of people. The relevance of the Portuguese wine is really revealed at the table with the customers. Now, everyone says to me, well, but then there is all those great varieties, we can't pronounce it. Well, guess what? I wasn't born knowing how to say Petit Menseng, or I wasn't born to say Zinomavro or Grüne Veltliner. I learned. So the Portuguese varieties, I agree, there's a lot of them. And since the Portuguese language is not prevalent in the world, I understand that some of you may feel a little bit skeptical when pronouncing them. But please raise your hand if you've never had a customer that walked up to you and said, hey, can I get a glass of Merlot? And you had to pause and think, what did he mean by Merlot? So having said that, don't worry about what's on the label. Enjoy what's in the glass. Present the wines as unique varieties from Portugal, native varieties from a beautiful country. And that is what I had to share with you today. And what I like to do now is to invite our first winemaker to join in. This wine comes from, as you can see on the map, highlighted by pink color, comes from the region of Lisbon. And this is the Quinta de Chocapalha, and it is a Portuguese variety from nearby named Arinto. And with us is Sandra Tavares, the winemaker.
Hi, so glad to be here and so glad to see you, Eugenio. I hope you are enjoying all the presentation, and I hope you'll enjoy all the Portuguese wines that you will taste today. So I'm representing Chocapalha. I'm the winemaker. And this estate was bought by my parents' estate when they decided to change their lifestyle. My father was a Navy officer. My mother, she was not working in the countryside, but they decided they wanted to build something together. And with the daughters, we have 3 girls. And so in the 80s, my father bought this property. It's located at Alenquer, so very close by Lisbon, the city. So we are about 50 kilometers northwest of Lisbon. This means that we have a huge influence of the Atlantic Ocean, but still we have some mountains protecting us from the direct winds. So create some very nice microclimate that we have beautiful. It's windy in the morning and foggy in the morning, but really opens during the day. And at night it closes again. So promotes to a very long ripening cycle. And this means that our wines are really fresh, mineral, and very classic in style. So we have, my father decided at that point to change all the vineyards because vineyards were in really bad shape, and he replanted everything. And in 2000, I joined the company and I'm the winemaker. And now we have also my sister that is also working together with us. It's Andrea. And it's really a family project. It's a small company. So we have 50 hectares of vineyards of several varieties, but main Portuguese varieties. And Arinto is for us, it's like our flagship, one of our flagship wines, because Arinto is really one of the oldest varieties from Portugal with lots of historic influence and a very long story. So it's a beautiful and fresh, and it's really local from Lisbon, really indigenous from Bucelas area, and it was spread all over Lisbon and then from other wine regions as well. Our Rinto, I think it's a very classic style. We really want is a very soft extraction. Then it was fermented in stainless steel, and then it was about 7 months in contact with the lees in order to have beautiful texture, but being light and fresh and mineral. So it's a very pure Arinto, I think, and it's a Arinto that it's beautiful now when it's young, but it will age for long and many years.
And I think, Sandra, in addition, I think the Arinto variety, for you guys that are not familiar with, it's a great variety that really retains a natural acidity. And it started on this small enclave of limestone called Bucelas near Lisbon. Okay. And then it spread all over the country because people realize it doesn't matter what the terroir is. Arinto is this vibrant, beautiful, clean grape variety. Sandra, this is my favorite white wine in the summer. But every time I say this, and then an Alvarinho producer says, I thought you liked my vineyard. I love them all. And we'll go back to Sandra at the end for Q&A. So now I would like to invite our next guest. Thank you, Sandra. I would like our next guest, which is Pedro. Pedro Teixeira works with Down Sul in Cabriche, is the winery. This is a wine from the Down region, which is this absolutely spectacularly perfect little haven to grow great wines in Portugal, surrounded by mountains with rivers running through it, lots of organic agriculture. And I would love for Pedro to come in and tell us more about it.
Hi, everyone. And hi, Eugenio. Thank you for attending, everyone. And Eugenio, I need to confess that I was like practicing my presentation during yours, and I just stopped and said, wow, this is a very nice presentation, and stopped and watched your presentation instead because it was really nice. Thank you. You're the man. So starting with the beginnings. My name is Pedro. I'm the export manager for Global Wines, and I'm representing Global Wines, which started as Down Sul in the 1990 decade. we started the company actually with this brand Capri's. At that time, the founders noticed and realized there was room for very easy drinking or good value for money wine from this region, which in the past had been a very big region, but at that time in 1990, it was decreasing importance with the opening for other regions to have more easy, a wide range of wines. So down region decrease is importance in terms of sales. And so that's what we realized was that there was room for this kind of wine, a good value for money and easy drinking wine. So that's what drove us and still drives this brand. This is the flagship brand and flagship wine in the company. And that's what we focus on. So at that, so in the progression of the company, we acquired other wineries, and we started and built other wineries in other wine regions such as Bairrada and Alentejo. And we grew and became the biggest company in down region, and we are still the best-selling down wine with Capri's brand in this region. We are now a company that produces around 7 million bottles. Half of that is export to over 40 countries. And Capri's represents the big portion of these numbers with around 2.5 million bottles produced yearly. From this wine, from Capri's Reserva Red, which is a combination of Alfrocheiro, Touriga Nacional, and Tinta Roriz, which are very autochthonous grape varieties in the region, and they produce very well. Actually, some say that Touriga Nacional was born in down region. There's a small village named Tourigo, and that's said to be the origin terroir for Touriga Nacional, which is situated in down. As Eugenio highlighted in the map, down region is in the center north of the country, surrounded by big mountains, which account for continental climate influence, very hot summers and dry and very cold and moisty winters. Granitic soils also are the main in the region, and that combination really makes for a good balance and very interesting and gastronomic wines. What we intend to do with this Capri's Reserva Red, which is a wine, I told you, the combination of the 3 grape varieties, main grape varieties in down region. This wine ferments at 26 degrees for a long time, 14 to 16 days, and then ages for at least 9 months in French oak barrels.
Pedro, that's terrific. And one thing that Pedro has said over and over again is that the fact that the down region really produces red wines that are very approachable and as we say in America, food wines, and as they say in Portugal, gastronomic wines. Thank you so much, Pedro. Capri's has also one of the nicest winemakers in Portugal, the guy with the biggest smiles. Osvaldo Amado is dear to everyone in the business, and that is reflected on the elegance of the wines. Thank you, Pedro.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.
I would like now to invite another Pedro. This Pedro comes from a little bit up north, and Pedro Canedo is with the Quinta Nova, which is in the Douro Valley. For those of you that have not been to the Douro Valley, just take a look at the left corner of your screen right now, and you see where you see the Quinta Nova. Look at the picture behind, or the picture behind me, you afterwards. It is an outstandingly gorgeous place. The Douro Valley is the oldest appellation in the world that was registered and demarcated in 1756. These vineyards are national treasures. As you can see, their terraces are hanging on for dear life, and Pedro helps them to stay alive with this beautiful wine. And Pedro, tell us about the Quinta Nova.
Hi, Eugenio, and thank you. Thank you also to the Wines of Portugal team, and also Christian and Napa Valley Wine Academy team for setting this up. And thank you all for attending. It's great to be able to show in this new reality the wines. So that's a privilege, and thank you all for setting up this. Regarding Quinta Nova, it's very old property from slightly north of the Dow region, where Pedro, very unusual name, by the way, in Portugal, Pedro. We only have 5 kings named Pedro, so everybody is Pedro, I guess. And but nevertheless, we're slightly above the Dow region, where Pedro was presenting his wine previously, northeast. So Douro is maybe 100 kilometers away from the sea, and it stretches all the way to Spain. And we're kind of in the middle of that, on the north side of the Douro River. So it's kind of the Fifth Avenue of Douro, I guess, the Cima Corgo, the Upper Corgo sub-region of Douro. Quinta Nova is a very old property. We have written records that in 1725, 3,500 pipas of port were made from grapes in our property. And the property is named after a small chapel that was built in 1721 to honor the saint protector of a religious saint protector, Nossa Senhora do Carmo, so that the people navigating in the river, whenever there was a tricky patch to go through, taking the port wine from the Douro to Porto to age, they would stop and pray in our chapel. And a lot of several chapels were built sometime along the way so that people could pray and have a safe voyage going across the river. So this property, really old. It passed from family to family, and in 1999, the current owners, the Amorim family, they are the biggest producers of cork in the world. They acquired this property, and from 100% port producing estate, they slowly started changing the philosophy, and nowadays we produce mostly still wine and a little bit of port, but the main driver is still wines, and we are proud to say that we are side by side with the best producers of still wine in the region. Regarding this wine that we are showing, it's the Quinta Nova, an oath red, and I think this adjective says it all. It's an oath blend of 4 grape varieties, classical grape varieties from Douro, Touriga Nacional, Touriga Franca, Tinta Roriz, and less heard of Tinto Cão. We start by doing this cold maceration prior to fermentation. The idea is to preserve, to closet the primary aromas. We do a low temperature fermentation period around 22, 24 degrees Celsius. in order to also preserve and enhance the primary flavors. After the malolactic fermentation, we will age. We'll do the blend. Sorry. So we start fermenting separately, and then after mallow we'll make the final blend that will age in stainless steel for about, it's between 9 to 12 months. It's never a formula. And we'll do monthly racks so that we want the wine to have intensity, and you know that sometimes wines in stainless steel they tend to be reduced, and we want to avoid that. So we'll do a monthly rack to kind of liven up the wine. I think it's a very versatile wine. You might pair it with food, or you can drink it on its own. We're enjoying the hot weather of summer. I think this wine slightly chills. It's great to enjoy it on its own or with some light food.
Well, Pedro, I think you guys succeeded. I hope everyone is tasting the wines. I hope everyone has the bottles open. This wine to me is an absolute charmer. It proves to us, to me at least, that you don't need heavily extracted wines. You don't need heavily oaked wines or highly alcoholic wines to give you the sensation and the impression of that you're having a mouthful and a full body red. That is a very gastronomic wine. This is bravo. This is delicious. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Bye-bye. Thank you.
We're going to continue and stay on the Douro. And now we're going to invite back our delightful Sandra Tavares to talk about her Manuela, which is another wine from the Douro region, also from a neighboring valley, one of the tributaries of the Douro Valley. Sandra and her husband have made a mission of themselves, of theirs, to preserve and to bring back to life these old vineyards, and they do beautiful work. So Sandra, can you tell us a little bit more about Manuela?
Of course. So Manuela, it's one of our wines from Wine and Soul. Wine and Soul, it's a company that I formed together with George, like Eugenio was telling. We are both winemakers, and both of us, when we started, we had different projects, both had family projects, but we wanted to make wines together. So in 2001, we started and we decided to make one wine together. But focused in really old vines in the Douro. So, and because we love the Pinhão Valley, so we established in Valdemendiz, this very little town at Pinhão Valley, very close by Pinhão village. And then step by step, we've been buying little vineyards. The first vineyard we bought was Pintas, which is only 3 hectares. And then we started gradually buying other vineyards for other labels. Because our goal is to make wines that have the sense of the place, and so it's all single vineyard wines. Manuela was in 2009. We had the privilege, and it was a big step in our company because we bought one of the properties from George family. George is from a very old family in the Douro. He's the 5th generation, it's already on the 5th generation. And this property was bought by his great-grandfather during phylloxera time. So that's why this estate was established. It belongs to this family since 1838. And in 2009, we were really glad that we could buy it and include in our portfolio. So it's a property that it's located in Pinhão Valley as well. And the difference in this estate is because it's 70 hectares of land and only 20 hectares of vineyards. The rest is forest. And this, which was always what really made me thought that this society is really special, because there's a huge diversity of olive trees, of cork trees, of so many pine trees and whatever. So it's really a beautiful diversity that really makes the wines from Manuela different, because just to understand, it's a huge mass of forest that surrounds the vineyards and really cools down. So probably we have the idea of the Douro being a very warm and very dry, and it is, so it's very extreme climate. Normally everybody jokes because it's a very long, that in the Douro we have 9 months of winter and 3 months of hell. And normally it's between June and August, it's really, really hard. But we have the winter, which is really cool. But at Manuela, with this forest, it cools down and we have very long ripening cycles. And so Manuela wines, and we have only 2 wines, which is this one that we are tasting now, and we have also the very, very old wines. And the wines are what we want the wines to show. It's this purity, this finesse, and more is the berries are more on the red berries, but also it's a light with spices and herbal, and because all the vineyards are surrounded with all these bushes and wild flowers. So I think Manuela, it's really a wine that shows Douro in a different style and more elegant, a very gastronomic, a very pleasant red wine from the Douro. It's fermented in lagares, but with very little extraction, and it just pushed down very softly for about 10 days at cool temperatures, and after was aged 16 months, but very old barrels, so very used and neutral barrels. And so, because we just want to have a very nice natural stabilization, because we do very little interference on our wines. So well, I think it's a very gastronomic.
It does show that the wine has been made with a lot of care and a lot of love. And for those of you that don't know what lagares are, they are basically like shallow swimming pools made out of granite, or if you are in the Alentejo, sometimes made out of marble, which are like a wonder. I wish I could put one of those in my backpack and bring it back home. And so the extraction is very gentle. And from what I learned, once you stomp on the grapes, your foot is incapable of cracking the seeds. So you never extract anything too bitter or too harsh of the oils. And when you lift your foot up, that can be a human foot or mechanic, you bring juice to the cap and you push oxygen down. So it's a brilliant method, and the wine is delicious. I always say, Sandra, the good wine makes you hungry, and I am starving right now. Thank you. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now, speaking of that revolution that happened in Portugal and all these wonderful ladies that have basically taken the wine business by storm, we have another female winemaker, Joana Massanita. Joana, alongside with her brother, Antonio Massanita, the gregarious Antonio Massanita, in the Alentejo and the Douro, they have this phenomenal company, and they make wines in the Douro, in the Alentejo, in the Azores Islands. So it is very exciting for me to be tasting the Douro red. So Joana, can you tell us about your wine?
Hi, Eugene. Thank you so much for this moment. I also have to say your presentation was brilliant. Please send it by email. It's fantastic. It's perfect. It's the maps that I'm always looking for, and I don't have them, so please send it to me. Mm-hmm. So I'm Joana Massanita. I started making wines 15 years ago with my brother. We are both winemakers, and we both don't have family in the wine business. So we started from scratch. He was 23, I was 21, and we did our first wine in Alentejo. Some years after, I was invited as a wine consultant to come to Douro to help producer to make a wine. And when I encountered, as Eugene said, this wine region, I was completely passionate about it. I was obsessed about Douro, and I wanted to come to Douro to make wine. So I forced my brother to join me and make a wine here that we called Maçanita, which is our family name. And he was not completely in favor, but I convinced him and said, I will do all the things. You just have to help me, you know, to taste some wines, and we will get through this. So we started in 2011 to make our first wine here, and it was a bad thing for 3 years. So I didn't know the region. Douro, as you may know or not, but it's a very diverse place. So in terms of vineyards, soils, expositions, altitudes, you have it all here. So you can have a very dry, hot vineyard close to the river in schist soil, in a very pure soil, or you also can have granitic soils with freshness in altitude. So we've been exploring that, the understanding that we don't know anything about Douro. As much as we learn about Douro, we get more curious and we find new things. So basically this Maçanita Red started with this numerous equations, not having any tradition in Douro, so not having the typical school of making wine for port that we didn't have because we were born in the city in Lisbon, so we are not natives from here. And we also had this idea that we didn't know well Douro and we wanted to explore. So year by year, we've been, you know, trying to figure out more about Douro and understand how is the profile of a granitic soil in altitude, which wine makes it, and old wines, are they all the same or are they very different if they are in schist or in granite? And we've been understanding that this amount of diversity is what Douro is. And traditionally, we think in Douro as a very extracted and very big wine because that was port was all about. And what we understood, it's the old Douro is, like Sandra was saying, is very old wines, very elegant wines, very fresh and mineral wines, but also is warm and over-extracted and yummy wines. So we kind of started doing our blend of these different types of soils and different types of exposition, and also the innumerous varieties Eugene talked about, which are gigantic here in Douro. And we started to build this blend. And this blend became bit by bit more what we think as winemakers, as brothers, as a family, what we believe we think Douro is. It's not an absolute idea, of course, it's our vision. And our vision is non-interventional, so we don't use pumps, we don't over-extract wines, we don't do over-extract pump overs. So we do a lot of non-interventional winemaking, no yeast edits or wild fermentation. So the wine takes the time it takes to make itself. So we as a winemakers, we just have the minimum control. So no additions of sulfur, almost anything just before bottle. So the idea was to try to show you and everyone all of these parts from Douro mixed in a bottle of red. So it's very simple winemaking, very pure winemaking. And of course, we do a little bit of used barrels to, you know, I like the micro-oxygenation. I think it's a very interesting progress. And I think, of course, it was created by man, but it's a very, it's something that will improve wine without marking it. So Maçanita Red is a joint venture of me and my brother, and trying to show everyone what we believe Douro is.
It's very rare that I find anybody more enthusiastic than I when I'm doing a presentation for Wines of Portugal. And Joanna and Sandra are a clear example of why the Wines of Portugal are getting so much better every year. And
thank you.
Joanna, thank you. The wine is brilliant. The minerality comes through. The floral notes of the Douro Reds really is, this wine is stunning, and thank you all for your enthusiasm and for you and your brother making my job so easy, because if you don't like this, there's something wrong with you, not with the wine. Thank you, Anna.
Drink Portugal, guys. Don't forget. Best wines ever.
Thank you. And if you guys haven't had enough of wonderful ladies that are in the wine business in Portugal, I want to introduce you to one more. And now this one is from the south, where Joana's brother lives, in the Alentejo. The Alentejo is so close and dear to my heart. I grew up from a rural family in Brazil. We always owned farms and rode horses and raised cattle. And I love the Alentejo. It makes my heart really peaceful when I go there. The rolling hills, the cork trees, the abundance of the old cities. It is just a place to see. Again, with this haircut, don't go there in July. But without further ado, I want to introduce you to Sandra Alves. Sandra is the winemaker for Esporão. Esporão, as you probably all know, is one of the emblematic brands of Portugal, and they do a phenomenal job, not only in preservation and sustainable agriculture, but also in winemaking and olive oils. If you haven't had their olive oil yet, you don't know what you're missing. But Sandra, this is Esporão Reserva in our glasses right now. It is really singing.
Yes.
Can you tell us about
it? It's here. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this moment. Thank you, Eugenio. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, all of you for attending us. It's amazing because, in matter of fact, I'm in the harvest time, so I'm just in the middle of 2020 harvest, and I just stopped my day to be here, to be with you, and I'm so happy with this because it's a great moment to talk with you a little bit about our winery, our project, and the Esporão state. So, as Eugenio said, my name is Sandra, so I'm winemaker for Esporão. That is located in Alentejo, south of Portugal. That is, the matter of fact, is one of the biggest region, is the biggest region in Portugal. And it's quite different from north to south, and it's an amazing and extraordinary conditions for viticulture and agriculture. It's completely different from the north of Portugal. In matter of fact, it's very interesting when you think in Portugal as a tiny country, and it's so much different from Douro Valley, Trás-os-Montes, for Vinhos Verdes, and for Alentejo. So here, well, my time is too short to tell you so many things I want to say about the Esporão state, but just two facts. Well, first, Esporão were founded, well, Bondaries Esporão were founded in 1267, so it's a quite long time. And the second thing is that, well, we are very focused in maintain biodiversity, well, in taking care from our soils for manage in the proper way the water resource. So, and that's the complement, and that's because of this that we have 750 certified organic vineyard in our state. So it's probably one of the biggest vineyard certified as organic in the whole world. So just these two facts. But today I think we will talk about Esporão Reserva. So I have my bottle, as you have with you, and I have my glass. So it's a very special wine for us because it was the first wine that we produced at the Esporão state. So the first wine came in 1985, and it's been maintained consistent and character from Esporão soils and climate and vineyards. So it's like our ADN from the state. So here we use, for this one, we use Aragonês, we use Alicante Boucher, Trincadeira, and like 10% of Cabernet Sauvignon. Some of these vineyards have been planted in early 70s, so they have around 45 years old, so it's quite a good age for this. And that's why this wine shows consistency and the richness year after year, year after year. Another thing that I want just to talk, and if you have your bottle with you, just please have a look in our label. So every year we invite a different artists that make our label, and so it's not just a joint venture between the universal culture of wine and art as well. So for this grape variety, so each of these grape varieties are vinified separately. So in stainless steel tanks, some in these lagars that for Douro Valley they are made with granite, but here we use marble because it's the typical product that we are here. So. And after vinification, after fermentation, so they stay for 12 months in American oak, 60% American oak, 40% French oak, and after that, plus 8 months in bottle. So please, I invite you to taste it and just to feel the richness in the aroma. So it's really smells like a Alentejo wine region, you know, like this kind of very rich, fruity, some plants, some spices, some.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed.
Those from the oak, and well, just to finish, Eugenio, if you taste it, it tastes like Alentejo.
Yes, it does. I was going to say that. It tastes like the Alentejo. It tastes like the warm rolling hills of the Alentejo with the soft and supple tannins. And as you can notice from the difference between the north and the south, there's a lot. Yeah. The Alentejo takes about a third of the country of Portugal, and it has a lot of diversity, lots of terroirs and sub-regions within the Alentejo. And I think Sandra in the past was in charge of the white wines of the Alentejo, which I love. And now she's in charge of everything. Hey, congratulations. And makes us more Moretto. I love that wine you guys make.
I will. I'm working on this. Well, maybe next 2 weeks, I will be working on this for 2020. Thank you, Eugenio.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sandra. So yes. I really wanted to just finish by saying that before I go back to Christian, is that Portugal is all about this. It's about the uniqueness of the grape varieties, the diversity of soils and terroirs and climates, and also the people. You got a little taste for them. They are as hospitable, as talented, as friendly, as warm as they came across in this presentation. I encourage you all to really take a chance with Portugal, because it is going to be rewarding to you as a buyer, as a sommelier, as a shopkeeper, as a wine drinker. I have enjoyed Portuguese wines on my own, not just because I need to get more knowledgeable about it, but because I truly enjoy them. And with that, my portion of this presentation has ceased. And Christian, take it from here.
Great. Eugenio, thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation, and just a beautiful insight into Portugal and its diversity and everything it has to offer. And thank you so much to all the wonderful presenters and sharing your wines. They are truly delicious. And I can tell you one thing, I'm sure I speak for many of you out there. I'm going to be running out and making sure that my cellar has more Portuguese wines in it for sure. So we are up on the hour, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time today. I want to thank you for participating. Hopefully you enjoyed the wines and the presentations. We would love for you to share your thoughts using the hashtags that we've provided. The most important one, obviously, hashtag Wines of Portugal. If you wouldn't mind sharing your experience on social media, we'd be grateful for that. In the meantime, we hope that you have Portuguese wines in your future and hopefully in your cellar or on your wine list coming up soon. Eugenio and everyone, thank you so much. Stay safe, drink well, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the winemakers, and enjoy it. Enjoy Portuguese wines.